You have a name, so when I'm done, it's archived. Who would, oh, where's Barbara? Who's going first? Who? Okay, all right. Come on, Lauren.
Did you find my slide?
No, I'll do it right now. Okay. All right, we can just talk amongst ourselves. We have everybody here, Mark? All right. I feel like I'm firing up the troops here, but as Barb said, what we're going to work on today is an environment that you begin to think about how, when you go back to your district, when you go back to your school, maybe just in general, how you think that you're going to design a makerspace. And we've got folks today that are going to talk a little bit about what they've done in their districts. And back to what we did yesterday. Think about, you know, when you're hearing, and you'll be able to watch this again, when you're hearing all those conversations, what do you think is going to work in your district? What do you think won't work in your districts? Because today, when we move forward, we're all going to sit and we're going to start thinking about how we want to design our maker spaces. And like I said yesterday, don't think of yourself as having to go alone on this. If you've got some folks that you've met and you want to just kind of work together, and maybe you might not even be in the same grade band, but just work on how you're going to design your environment. And that's what our hope was today. There you go. And while she's getting fired up here, like really fired up, really proud fired up, this is Lori Green. Lori, give me a job title.
I'm the Technology Resource Coordinator at Buckeye Local Schools Medina.
Okay.
I always have to put Medina afterwards because there are 4 Buckeye locals in the state, so I always like to quantify where I'm from. So,
and Lori's done. Lori will also be doing a hands-on presentation, talking a little bit about, talking about her Lego experiences at Buckeye. So if you would give your attention to Lori, and then after that we have Noah going to talk a little bit about what they're doing at EHO.
Great. Well, hello everyone, and it's nice to see you all here. I'm going to share a little bit with you about what we've been doing at Buckeye. As Jeff said, every makerspace, I think, kind of develops a little differently. There's no cookie cutter one that is going to be exactly the same, and you're going to see ours is definitely an example of that. We actually call it the Integrated Learning Center, and the way it came about was when I took my job a few years ago at Buckeye. They were just at the tail end of a STEM grant, and the grant administrator said, I have X amount of dollars left, what do I do? Something that is sustainable, that's progressive, forward-thinking. And there's this empty classroom down the hall. It was huge. And I said, And I thought to myself, and I said, why not have a room where, in the spirit of a maker room, that we can build and explore. Part of that doing robotics, because I'd done workshops with the teachers already in robotics, and other areas. So we commandeered that room, and you'll see some pictures of it in a few moments. Moved that teacher around the hall. She is starting to speak to me again. But now she brings her kids in, so it's all good. It's all good. So, but we chose to call it the Integrated Learning Center. I guess just another way, like a makerspace. But I wanted things being done within the curriculum, not after school or in a club, so forth. And I know that's another model that works really well. And as I mentioned, most people call me actually Mrs. Geeky. It's a long story, but you can call me Lori, but most people call me Mrs. Geeky. I've been a classroom teacher, technology coordinator, and I've been a consultant over the years. This is, I think, my 22nd year in education. But most of all, I'm a lifelong, now lifelong learner is politically correct. I'm a lifelong kid, and I love to geek up all the time. So I mentioned a little bit about how this all began. So when we started stocking this room, in my basement is Lego Land. I coached First Lego League for 11 years, the last 4 being a regional director. I have more Lego kits and Legos than you can shake a stick at. And in fact, when I got divorced, I think the final from my ex was in the paperwork where it says what you get, he gets. He wanted a 1/4 of the Legos. He said, what are you going to do with a 1/4 of these Legos that are in our basement? I don't know, but I want them. I said, we're going to weigh them, so. Anyway, how are we going to do this? But, this is the final part, because he knew how important they were to me and how much I've done with them. He eventually left them, because those are kind of my bread and butter when I consult. But I thought it was a little amusing. So the initial makerspace, I went to what I knew. So when you're making a makerspace, what my comfort zone is I went to what I knew because I knew I could grow from that. If I had confidence with the stuff I was using, then it spread. So you can see a little bit. I put these pictures in to give you an idea of the room. I regret not doing like a panoramic shot because it is way cool. But you can see like in the background, we have lots of boards to write on. We have different stations going on, and everything's on wheels. So if I have a group coming in to do one thing, I can rearrange the room one way. Another group coming in, we might rearrange it another. I've got, these are only $1 at the Dollar General store, these little tubs here, and I think I bought them out. We have quite a few, but they're handy, and I'll show you more on some of the things we're doing. I want to digress. We're going to talk about those 2 projects there in a minute, which are both very exciting. We get back to the Lego piece. So it's kind of easy. I wanted to get buy-in, and the teacher's all thinking, Mrs. Geeky, she thinks she's going to do all this stuff with Legos. So I did some workshops with them. And I taught them, boy, with Legos, you can do area, perimeter, mean, median, mode, multiplication, all kinds of lesson plans. And, I'll leave those for resources when Jeff puts those up online. But that got them thinking that Legos was more than just building. There was a lot more to it. We talked about vocabulary, and I have the word bingo up there because we did a vocabulary bingo game. But we started using the words beams, gears, bushings, bricks, pins, wheels, axles, motors, and sensors. We started doing that in the science classes. And that actually was to my benefit. It's really all about me, because when they started coming in, they knew their terms, and they knew some of the potential of what Legos could do from a math perspective. So it worked out fairly well. When you come into our lab now, the Legos that are in the carts or in bins will always have their exact title. It's a 2x4 block, or it's a half bushing with friction. And they are not allowed to call it anything else, or I get all dramatic and faint on the floor. So it's a 6-axle or an 8-axle. And by the end, you hear these girls talking like, they're ready to build a car or something. But it's nice. They know what they do. And it gives them the tools to build those things they haven't built before. Oh, just a little more on what we did with math and science and so forth. Arrays, Legos with blocks and bricks are in 2s. So we always count by 2s when we're counting our Legos. We always say, oh, what is this? A 2x4 Lego, and that's an array, and 4 times 2 is 8, and so on and so forth. You can do a whole thing with year rotations and fractions. But I started to ask myself, and I love this quote because this is exactly what I was thinking in my head. I have all these Legos, I have these kind of cool activities, but I want to take it to the next level. I want them to build. And I want them to go beyond just the prefab kind of idea. And so, well, is my space any less of a maker space? Simply because it doesn't have power tools, it doesn't have a 3D printer, which we don't in this particular room, because my students build with Legos. We do have some Connects and cardboard. I said, wow, she must have liked me reading my mind. Well, it did become a maker room. So how I got my way into the teacher was I first sold them on the idea that Legos really had some practical use within their classroom. We were beginning to study wind energy, and I said, let's have them build a windmill out of Legos. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, bring them on down. Well, where are the plans? Well, I don't have any plans. And we have some basic things. Look, it's got to have, a hole going up. It's got to have some blades going around. But other than that, I think they could do it. So she brought her class in. And we talked we studied wind turbines around the estate. And then once I had them built, and I had one in my hand, and I think I set it down, and I went back to resend. You can come by my table later and see it. I said to the kids, it's working great, and then I had them put a motor on it from the Lego NXT kit, and they programmed it so it would spin. And I said, I got a letter from a neighbor. It's on at night, and it's bothering them. They want it off at night. Now, obviously this is fake, because their windows are fake. But they did move. And so we looked at the different sensors. I didn't tell them what they could use to solve this problem. A good majority did figure out, hey, maybe a light sensor would work. Some wanted to do a touch sensor to turn it on and off. One thing I found when working with the teachers is they really wanted to give them the answer. And they really wanted to have a step-by-step. And they would cringe when I'd say, I don't know, what do you think? And I would always answer a question with a question. Does it plug in here? Well, let's think. Where you want it to go, from where to where? Well, I want it to go from here to here. Okay, where should we plug it in? Oh, okay. Because here's the thing, the kids are coming up to you now, and they don't have that experience at home of playing in the garage and building and so forth. So they're missing a little bit of like we might have had when we were little, so their ability to want to just jump in there and try and offer up solutions in the beginning is a little tentative. So they did need a little bit of leading, but I never gave them the answer. So then we talked about, we had a week where they can improve their design. But they all successfully designed their own windmill with Legos, programmed it to rotate, found a sensor that worked to turn it off and on. So it's off at night and on during the day. So then that kind of grew, and we have these carts that can actually go out from our makerspace into the rooms. So this was a teacher that was doing stop action motion to teach some math concepts. So we stock it with what she wants in it and push it out, and it's in their room so they can actually have a mini maker space in their room. So their movies turned out really cute. We used a Lego Movie Maker. The kids were given a lot of open-endedness because by this time, this particular teacher, she did the windmill project with me, kind of got how it's okay to let go and let them design their own things. So it kept growing from there. So I'm going to ask you, what class do you think this is that was in our Lego lab here?
Music.
Music? It was. This is the world's first sixth grade robotic orchestra that performed at their music concert. So using Damien Key's book, which is brilliant, by the way, they did build a design from there, but then they modified it for their own purposes. They have 3 NXTs programmed for every xylophone, and then they designed something to play, it might be another picture, a triangle, a drum, and a trobot. And they played Do Re Mi in celebration of Sound of Music. And it was just amazing. Now, getting that up to the stage from the makerspace was quite a feat. So this was set up exactly as it should be. What class do you think this is?
English.
English? Anyone else?
Study hall.
No, it could be. It could be. I have kids come in after school, like a study hall and tinker. It's actually several classes. This is social studies, and it is English. They were studying and it's music. They were studying famous explorers, and so they had to write a few paragraphs on the exploring what they did, like Columbus discovered America type of thing. Then they had to do a storyboard. Then from the storyboard, they created a stop-action motion movie that illustrated what that famous explorer was for. Then with the music teacher in GarageBand, they wrote a piece of music that would represent that time period and integrated it into the final movie. So we had music, social studies, English, everything going on. And you can see we brought one of our little mobile labs down. These are the iPads they used for filming the stop-action motion, and they use the iPads to compose their music and put it in.
GarageBand?
Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's other ones you could use. It would happen to be built in on the iPad, so that's what we chose. And there's that world-famous robotic orchestra that I was mentioning. That was afterwards. They were so proud. And I have to tell you, I got comments from more than one person that said, looking at those kids, a few of them, I would have never thought in a million years they'd be interested in engineering, some type of robotics, some type of building. And so they were. It really pulled out a lot of kids. We had one hearing impaired kid, too. This was the night of their performance. This was afterwards. They were total rock stars. You know, after the music performance, you're kind of burned and you want to go home. No, I know it's not you, it might just be me. But it's like, oh, that was lovely. Yeah, I didn't want to get home. So, I mean, it was too, but then you're ready for the next thing. But parents stayed and lingered, I would say, for up to 45 minutes. This young lady here was so shy, and not anymore. You should see her 2 years later. They were asking questions, how they did it. Community got involved and wanted to see how they could participate. So where are we now? We've bought 30 pianos for our makerspace now. They can either go out in the classroom or be in the classroom. They're Raspberry Pi little computers, and I don't help them at all. If you've never heard of piano, and I don't work for them, I happened to see them when they were doing a Kickstarter one day. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. I bought one for me to play with. The book, and this is why it worked for me too, the book is very visual. There's very little words, just very nice, like second, third grade appropriate pictures of how to put this computer together. And then when it kicks on, it wants you to do command line prompts to get it going, which I thought was brilliant, because kids know computers, but they don't. They know socially computers, but I don't think they really know computers. So making them do those command line prompts was a real eye-opener for them. And that's one class that did come down and do it, and look at all those girls, they're very engaged. And you can see in the background there, too, how we have some of the room organized. And now this is a very special group of girls. I have old computers, and these girls wanted to take them apart and put them back together. I'm like, sure. And so every time they got stuck, I'd act like I didn't hear them, and they eventually found out they could figure it out. Well, then they wanted to build a new one, and I'm going to go back to their story in a minute, so just hold that thought. We had a lot of discovery going on. I know he was not paying attention, but we have a lot of fun. We see girls gaining self-confidence. We see a lot of inventing. This holds the triangle for the orchestra. We had to get up on the ceiling and make it long enough because I wasn't going to ruin this kid's design for the concert. And this is getting back to the student voices of these girls. I just want to show you this. I bet I'm probably out of time, but these girls wound up building a brand new computer, really with no help, and formed this group called Girls Are IT. They, together with me, they wrote a grant for 2 more computers, computer parts, and they are now teaching the girls in the grade below them how to build computers. I just simply provide the room. And they teach them, this is the hard drive, this is, the motherboard, this is where the processor goes. Don't put in the processor the wrong way, it's not a good idea. And they are now going into 8th grade and are continuing to mentor 7th and 6th grade girls on how to build computers and get them to run. So they don't just know them for a social reason now. And they love it. They absolutely love it. And I make them order the parts. I can check before they order, but they have to go in and figure out everything they need. They have presented, and they were at the State Tech Conference this year. They were featured there. They have presented at Neotech, and we've got a couple other requests. So this was a presentation the girls put together, and if you go to my site later, you can see it, but that just tells a little more about their program. Other than that, that's kind of where we are right now. One thing to keep in mind on this one piece of advice that I learned, extensive preparation ahead of time, which having been a classroom teacher, I know we want everything just right, everything run off at the right time, all the pieces and parts ready to go. And when it comes to makerspaces and robotics and things like that, sometimes that's almost counterproductive. And I know that doesn't make sense, but it is. And this is a very good book by Mark, Getting Started with Lego Robotics. I thought that was a very, very good quote. Sometimes less is more. So how about your classroom? Does this give you any ideas of where you can start, starting in your comfort zone, ideas of what you want to do? Just remember that you are the guide on the side, yes?
Is this more getting started after school and then was embedded into the school day? Or if you don't have a makerspace at all and you're starting from scratch, how would be the best way to get that buy-in?
Right. So
that it can evolve.
I was very fortunate that I had this room that we could use and integrate during the day. You may want to start after school because it'll start a buzz with the kids. The other piece that really helped us is we had done some professional development with our teachers from those grade levels. Kind of parallel to that, I think I mentioned earlier, I showed them all the different ways you could use Legos within their own curriculum, which kind of brought down the stress level a little, and they said, oh, this is pretty cool. I see the connection now. So maybe kind of going at it from those two venues. Yeah.
How did you get? I'm trying to figure out how to say this. When you first got started, you said you were on the end of like a STEM. You did this district on the end of the STEM grant, and so you already had the like the administration kind of on your side for this. How would you go about getting administrators to not buy in, but to, because a lot of us already have the buy-in. It's the let's get the other teachers to do some training and just to see the benefits too.
I would almost have something like a maker day at your own school where the teachers could do some of those activities and some team building and I purposely pinpointed what they were doing right in their curriculum, like 6th grade I zeroed in, I forget it was area improvement now or whatever, but something where as they were doing the activity they go, I can use this in my classroom. And they're, oh, okay. And then you kind of have to take baby steps with them because it is a big change from having control in your classroom and knowing what you're going to do and what the worksheet looks like or what the final product is to having this open-endedness. The other piece, too, I always keep an ear to the ground on what they're doing in their curriculum. I have a guy who's doing Egypt studies every year. And finally, I have him convinced next year we're going to build a little robot that's going to go in with a little camera into a big pyramid, and we're going to have to sit and look like scientists over here and see what they see inside the pyramid. Are there hieroglyphics? Is there a tomb? What is there? And the kids are going to have it. It took a while. It doesn't happen quickly. Really important in their curriculum. Other questions? Yes.
How about storing, like accounting for items, making sure things don't disappear, stuff like that? Do you have any tricks or?
Oh yeah, and failures. I get that question every time, and I've been doing this a long time. I have to tell you, one time when we were doing Lego League, and it used to be in my basement for practice, there was this little buckyball that was part of the solution for something, and we have a dog named Demon who's really an angel, but not that day. And I hear my little daughter say, Mom, Demon ate the buckyball. We're not getting it back. So, at any rate, I've tried several different ways. Earlier, if you saw those carts that I have, those are great. Those came from Akron Mills, I believe, is a storage company. I was just noticing these two that are on wheels as well, something like that. I often get asked, I have these NXT kits or I get these Lego kits. How do you keep them organized? I don't. What I do is I store them by their type. The 6 axles go here, 8 axles, 2x6 bricks go here, 2x10 flats go over here. Because when you're working in the real world, you're not going to say, I've only got 4 bushings and that's it. And boy, isn't that limiting. So all the bushings from all those kits, I think I've got 3 big bins of them, but they have as many bushings as they want to put things together, so they're not limited. In terms of numbers, you asked about numbers too. Some of them just either get in the vacuum cleaner, a kid's pocket. Now, when it comes to Lego minifigs, I keep those in a locked safe, and I am not exaggerating. Those are popular. But when we bring them out for stuff, I try and count them. I lose a couple each time. So, yes?
I was going to say that this is the best time of year to be watching for stuff that gets thrown out. So how many of you have got TV carts and you're no longer using the TVs because you got projectors? I've got 4 TV AV carts and then 2 old laptop carts that I use for maker carts that we just wheel around. And right in the school, and it's just, I mean, you spend almost nothing on it.
Right. Fishing tackle boxes, I've used those, especially if we're on the move. That's a good way to organize them. Those bins that you saw there were at the dollar store, and what I found out when I couldn't find any more at the dollar store is that if you go to the dollar store's website, they sell all that stuff by the box. So you don't want to know how many I have now. But but they're great for just quickly sorting, even when they need to take something apart at the end. So you have a few options. Like I said, the carts that you can push, those bins. You were saying the containers. I've seen a lot of people use fishing tackle boxes because you can kind of move the things inside. What else have we tried? But those seem to be the best.
If you have groups creating, if you have multiple groups creating something or multiple classes, how do you store things when they're in the process? You know, they're not quite done yet.
So I have larger bins that I also got at the dollar store, and we also get trays, like lunch cafeteria trays. And the kids put them on there with their name, and I've learned now it has to have a sticker on the bottom. They can't just write it on a piece of paper because they either switch them or they lose them on the floor, and then they think that other one is theirs. And I have a lot of shelf space. So I'll have the teacher's class name up there, and if they need to put it on a lunch tray and stick it there, or use just a bigger bin, think ahead about what your project will entail. But yeah, that is a very important thing. Did that help her? Kind of, sort of.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great way to that.
In the back, and then you.
Your room, is it square, rectangular?
I should have taken a big picture. It's rectangular, it's fairly long, so we can have kind of different areas. I fought to have carpet in the entire room because I felt that's kind of like a comfort, and you can get on the floor and work. I won half that battle. Half the room is carpeted, and the kids do tend to want to be on the carpet, and they're relaxed when they're building and exploring.
How long are your classes? Depend on the. What is a good time frame? I'm talking more like upper elementary.
Yeah, so I mostly have right now 5th, 6th, 7th graders.
Okay.
I would like them all morning if I could. That isn't always practical, so it's going to depend on the teacher, what they're doing. We try and plan pretty far ahead. On the average, like for the music one, they were in there for an hour and a half. But sometimes there were weeks I could only have 40 minutes. I did have to do a little more prep then, make sure the computers were on, because that would waste time, and make sure I took care where they were in the process and put them on the shelf or on the table for them. Assign the tables where they're working. That way they wind up getting back on the same computer. I hate doing that, but we have to. We had kids this year in the SBH class create, because I'm into the Iditarod, create sled dogs, robotic sled dogs that hold an NXT. So next year we're going to have a game with it. We like roll the dice and say you come into Shabbat. We're going to roll the dice and all these things. Oh, lizard's ahead. Should you stay or should you go? Pull over on the side. It's going to go around the room, little robot dogs, to the different checkpoints.
Just another budget. That Kano project is a great project. It's 150 pies. Just go digging in their site and you can find the downloadable image for that. So rather than taking Raspbian, you can just boot it up with a little SD card.
And you reminded me of another point. You know, the NXT they no longer support. They quit producing that. They have something called the EV3. Now you can still run your NXT. You can use I want the NQC RoboC. Yeah, I'm having a brain block. I was just using it yesterday. It'll be on my Robot C. Thank you. Robot C will work in a few other languages. We'll work on it as well. In all multiple languages. There's a little NXT that goes that far, and then go left, and so that's another way to introduce some of those concepts.
Do you have a presence to market all this to your teachers and stuff, or is it more word of mouth?
I do. They actually probably have to shut me up, but I should put more on the web. I have stuff on the web for them. We have something called the stuff we have. LegoEngineering.com, which is an excellent resource if you're just getting started and want to integrate Legos into your makerspace. And it's all free. That's Lego Engineering. Yeah, LegoEngineering.com. So.
Well, Noah's getting ready to go. If we've got one more question for Lori. Now you run out of
If
questions.
anything later on, she's going to have 3 opportunities for you to attend your session and talk to you a little bit about that.
Remember, you can build anything with Legos. And I tell the kids, sometimes they use Lego robotics in freshman engineering courses in college. They're like, oh, so maybe it's not so bad after all.
While we wait for Noah to get rolling here, we have just to add to your schedule, just to give you an update. I want to say around 2:30. You want to explain who we're connecting with?
Sure. So today at 2:30, first build. It's a makerspace at the University of Louisville. They've partnered with GE and GE's Small Appliance Division. If you look up first build, GE has put out some awesome appliances already from this makerspace, and it's only been open less than a year. And along with that, they partnered with Male High School. Male High School is right next to the University of Louisville. And so they're going to talk to us today about their makerspace, how they got started, and how they could potentially help or partner with you with your makerspace. But they're going to talk about for where they're at and how they got there and their network. So very, very impressive space. I visited about 2 months ago. The innovation, you can come in off the street and talk with the gentleman from GE and say, hey, this pizza oven that you're making for residential use, I got a really good idea for that, and they'll pull you in as part of their team to help with that innovation, and they would allow you some opportunity for profit in regards to your critical stuff. People like that.
And as we said, much as what you're dealing with in the maker environment, this conference has been very organic. We were talking yesterday about the connections that he had with Louisville, and I said, hey, if we get him for a Google Hangout, can we do that? So we're adding that to the schedule. I know it kind of not to pick between, and I've got to even figure out where in the world it's going to happen, but it'll happen. So with that, we've got Noah from eHove, and he's going to talk about the Fab Lab there.
All right. My name is Noah Razor. I've been working in Fab Lab since 2007. And as
Can you talk about it?
yeah, sorry. My name is Noah Razor. I've been working in Fab Lab since 2007. I started out at Lorain County Community College out in Elyria. I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes maybe from here. I worked as a lab tech there, taught some basic classes there, and then I moved on to eHove Career Center, which is out in the Sandusky, Norwalk area. I've been there since 2012, and we are a career tech school, so we have high school students as well as adult students in career-based classes. My presentation, I based the beginning of it is basically talking a little bit about the basics. What is a Fab Lab? A Fab Lab is basically a small-scale workshop. From I think everyone here is at least familiar with that concept. And if you didn't know, Fab Labs can be found all across the world. I think this number, where I put 250 Fab Labs, I believe there's closer to 1,000 now. The number is doubling about every 18 months. Here's just a quick, some pictures of some different Fab Labs that we had either visited or found pictures of, just to kind of show some of the diversity of Fab Labs. They can be anywhere from the most rural areas to the most, the biggest cities, places that don't have electricity, places that, have the best technology, all kinds of different places. And the important thing about a Fab Lab is more of the network of people and the idea behind making things and being able to create things that you want or that you need, or things that can increase the value of the materials and the things available to you. What can you make in Fab Lab? Just about anything. And who can make these things? Pretty much anybody. Most Fab Labs are available for people to come in and learn how to do things and create all kinds of stuff. I was kind of rushing through those first couple slides because I wanted to focus a little bit more on the Fab Lab machines. I know that a lot of you, from seeing what we have or what's available to you in this lab, you'll see that many fab labs have different equipment, but they have kind of the same sorts of equipment, and usually on about the same scale size-wise. But different fab labs have different things. These pictures show off what we have at the Hobie Fab Lab. We have 2 Epilog CO2 laser cutters. They're pictured here. There's a few laser cutters upstairs which are very similar to these. Ours are just a little bit smaller. Laser cutters are able to cut and etch all kinds of different materials, mostly woods and plastics that don't contain vinyl. But we do things like paper, cardboard, leather, etching paint off of metal surfaces, all kinds of different stuff. And we can make just about anything with the lasers. They're the easiest to use machine that we can jump into. Right here you see some kindergartners that were etching dog tags, and we had them do the design and everything for them, and it only took a few minutes to get through. We use CorelDRAW as our design software that we run the lasers with. A lot of times the lasers can be used to make a finished product, like the dog tag or like model of something. And a lot of times, if we make something on a bigger machine, like a ShotBot or something like that, we'll make a small-scale model on the laser out of cardboard or some material that's cheap. That way, if you mess it up, you find out, you make your mistakes on the small model, and then work your way up to something larger. Here's just some pictures of things our students have made with our laser cutters. From remote control airplanes to rulers, clocks, lamps, mousetrap cars. An engraved piece of granite. Vinyl cutter. It's a 24-inch vinyl cutter, similar to the. Basically, the vinyl cutter is a machine that uses a computer-controlled razor blade and can cut shapes out of a piece of vinyl, which is just a very thin, adhesive plastic film. It's usually used to make stickers. However, you can use it to make flex circuit boards. You can get cuttable copper. You can solder components that can flex. You can make switches, wires, all kinds of stuff out of that copper. And one thing that we've been doing with ours is we'll take our cutter blade out, and I had a high school senior that designed a pen holder here. It's a 3D printed pen holder, and instead of the blade, you put a pen in the machine, and now it's a pen plotter. So that was a project that one of my high schoolers had developed, and now we use that in our classes. When we teach the vinyl cutter, before you ever get to cut any vinyl, I give you a sheet of paper, and you put the pen in, and you run CorelDRAW and send the design over to the vinyl cutter, just like you would if you were cutting a sticker, except you can't mess it up, because if you mess it up, it's just a sheet of paper, not really a big deal. Whereas you're not worried about, a whole piece of vinyl or something like that. The cost is much lower, and all of the skills to get onto the machine and load the machine and run it and everything are exactly the same. Once they show mastery of making a pen plot, then I'll give them a piece of vinyl, and then they can work on the extra skills included in vinyl cutting, which is like weeding and transfer taping and applying and all of that. There's a picture of a multi-cut vinyl sticker here. And here's an example of one of the circuit boards that's made out of copper. Vinyl cuttable copper. We also have a large vinyl printer cutter, basically the same as the 24-inch machine, except it's 54-inch, and not only cut, but it can also print. So you can make a sticker that's multi-colors without making it multi-layers. And here's some examples of things people have made with that. All right. So you all have heard of the ShotBot that they have here. ShotBots are very common, but there's also another type of machine called a Techno. Techno and ShotBot, the way I explain it to my kids, are kind of like Ford and Chevy. Both make a car. You can drive a Ford, you can drive a Chevy. Some people like one, some people like the other, but at the end of the day, they both get you where you're going. That's exactly like this. Techno, ShotBot, same thing, same machine, just different brands. So some are kind of different than, or some things are a little bit different than others, like where the buttons are in the software and that kind of stuff for the control. But you're going to use the exact same control software, The machine acts the same. It uses the same tools. If you can run one machine, you can run the other. This just happens to be the one that we have. It's 4 feet by 8 feet, which is the same size as the ShotBot here. It's used to drill holes, mill slots, cut parts out, things like this table here that can be made on a Techno or a ShotBot. Typically, it's used for larger things. Here's just some examples of, usually it's cutting plywood. You can also cut things like, for example, other types of wood, like solid wood, like log. We can cut through some light metals, aluminum and brass. If you have the right tooling and you have the right speed settings and everything, you can cut through metal pretty reliably. It's not as good as like a full-fledged CNC mill, but it does have the capability of cutting metal, so you can do some things like that. That would be something that we use to make make our big stuff, make the furniture, make the chairs. We made my high schoolers designed and built all the stools in our classroom, our display case, and this is actually the podium we have in the lab as well. And I need to update this slide. We got a new 3D printer as well. So we have a Dimension 3D printer, which they have the same one upstairs. We have a BFB 3000, which is it's on the hobbyist scale of 3D printers. It's in the $3,000 range, which now seems like it's kind of up the higher range of the hobbyist machines, where a lot of machines now are getting in the $1,500 to $2,000 range. The difference between these two machines is the Dimension machines use a proprietary material. It comes in a cartridge. You have to use their material and put it in their machine. Whereas the BFB uses just a spool of material. So the cost is like 10 to 30 times cheaper because you can buy the material from anywhere you want, put it in the machine. It doesn't have to be that brand of material. You can go online and you can just find a spool, kilo of whatever material for about 25 bucks and put it in the machine, and you're good to go. We also have got a new 3D printer, which is not pictured here, called the Form 2. The Form 2 is a resin printer. So where most 3D printers in fab labs and stuff now that you'll find run with a filament of material, so it's like a plastic string that goes into an extruder and gets deposited layer by layer. A resin printer uses a UV laser and a vat of this liquid plastic resin. And when the laser hits the resin, it cures it. So you get much higher resolution. Whereas like our smallest layers, it'll do is 10,000ths. The Form 2, the printer costs about 10 times less, and the resolution is literally 10 times higher. So it'll do 1,000th layers.
Noah?
Yeah.
So, I specifically work with Noah Hobie. But I can tell you, I think it's year 5 for us with our Fab Lab. And the 3D printers that we have a Dimension, which they have upstairs, and then we've got the BFB 3000. I think we have more than quadrupled the use of a 3D printer by these Form Lab printers. They're just so much easier to use. It's pretty much point and click and print. And the quality is unbelievable. So if you guys are looking for a 3D printer, they're amazing.
They're designed and built in the U.S. also.
So Form Labs, that's the website, I believe, right?
Yep. Or if you Google it, I'm sure you'll find it. It'll look like an orange box. Got an orange acrylic top on it. But yeah, they're excellent printers. And what's nice about the software is it's very, usually when you get into software, you'll get something that's user-friendly but not powerful. It doesn't have those options for the advanced users. Or you get into a software that's got all the advanced features, but if you haven't had a class specifically in it, you have no idea what to do. That software is perfect because it starts out, you want to get into the advanced options, you get into the advanced options. If you want to run that machine, it comes with its own material that's from Form Labs. But if you want to buy your own material and run it in there, there's just a button you click and say, I want to run my own material, and it lets you do that. Or if you want to go in and have it generate its own support material, you can go in and modify where the supports are and modify everything about it. And It's just a really good machine. I can't say anything bad about it. We've had them for a couple months now, and I've had more people use those in the last couple months than I have used the other two printers combined in the last year. So they're really cool printers. Some other equipment that you'll often find in a fab lab. You might have some hand tools, wrenches, screwdrivers, that kind of stuff. We have an acrylic bender, which is just a heat strip that basically you just heat up a line of the acrylic and you're able to bend it and form it in different ways. It's nice to have a sander and something like a bandsaw or jigsaw and a drill press. Now, yeah, the laser can do, but in certain cases you just want to cut, a couple of real quick or something like that. And it's nice to have those machines. All right, so that was the equipment side of things. What do we do at the eHobie Fab Lab? Like I said, we are a career tech school. Most of the time during the week, we have high school personal fabrication classes. This year we ran 3 classes, so we had 3 80-minute sessions where we had about 20 to 24 high school students in the Fab Lab for an entire semester. And they went through all of the Fab Lab processes, from the simplest vinyl cutting and laser cutting to 3D design, multi-part assemblies in a software like Inventor or SolidWorks, and then standalone and group projects on how to assemble parts. Here's an example of one of the stools that we had made in the lab. You can see here there's several other stools. These are electricity students had come in and they're doing a project making lamps. And these were some students doing an extracurricular project. There was a veterans group that was making birdhouses or squirrel feeders, I think it was, that they were going to hang around trees, and those students stayed after to complete some of those. We had a high school CAD robotics class, which we built battle bots, basically 15-pound battle bots. We go down to Dayton and compete twice a year. And we'd use the Fab Lab processes to make the robots. So we'd use like our Techno CNC router to cut out a lot of the robot parts. We'd use the laser to cut out some plastic covers and things. You can these orange pieces 3D printed. So those 3D printed pieces that we made, we'd have the students design and build this robot from scratch. These kids would come in. Some of them had never held a screwdriver or a wrench before, and we had 6 weeks to get them down to a competition with the functional robots to go destroy other robots with. So we had them get right into 3D design. They started building battery mounts and speed controller holders and the electronics enclosures and everything, and then started 3D printing those. So the 3D printer was kind of like a robotic worker in that sense. So as soon as they got that design, they'd send it over to the 3D printer and start designing the next part. So 3D printer's printing while they're designing the next part, and the kids working in groups of 4. And they'd have to do everything. Here we got this guy's soldering, and so we have to, there's bits of electronics, there's bits of using hand tools, there's bits of 2D design, there's 3D design. They had to do vinyl, stickers to put on the robot. They had to make, acrylic spacers and all kinds of different stuff. So it was a really excellent class as far as using the Fab Lab in its entirety. So they used every piece of machinery in the lab to build the robots, and they had to learn it in kind of a quick time frame, 6 weeks, to be able to get done with the robot and get it down to competition. And that was just the way that the time frame worked with our school year. But it was a really cool project, and the kids they do that as a junior, and then as a senior they can come back and take the Fab Lab class again. And one of the other things we do is, if the students didn't take the Fab Lab class, or maybe even if they did, as part of their program, they might come over and use our lab. Like I was talking about, electricity students making lamps. They made these laser cut lamps and they wired them up. Here we've got some auto technology kids that were making mousetrap cars to learn about gear ratios and and mechanical advantage, what happens if you put bigger wheels on something or smaller wheels, and learn the ins and outs, kind of the physics of some of that motion. They're making laser cut mousetrap cars. These guys down here are part of our Science by Design class, which they're shooting rockets. They 3D printed the nose cones, they laser cut the body tube and fins out of manila folder, and they use vinyl to wrap around the thing to act like tape to hold it all together. And it's a pneumatic rocket launcher, so there's a guy with a spike pump right here, and he pumps this thing up, and when he pushes that little button, it operates an electronic sprinkler valve, and that just lets all the air out and shoots the rocket. So it costs nothing to launch the rockets. You can launch them over and over. What was nice about that was they learned about the aerodynamics, as well as these were students that had never used the Fab Lab before, so using the laser and 3D printer to build a project. They also built catapults, and they built catapults, and at the end of the year, they broke into groups and they made a Rube Goldberg machine where each small group had to do one portion of the Rube Goldberg machine, and it all acted in a series to end up pieing someone in the face. And they triggered it they sent us text to a phone. That phone vibrated off something, and a whole bunch of other things happened. And eventually, one kid got a whipped cream pie in the face. We don't only do high school; we also do adult ed classes. So adults can come in and we have evening classes. They can come in and learn all the Fab Lab processes as well. It's a 10-session course. We either offer it as 10 once-a-week sessions, or we do 5 weeks of 2 sessions each. We do either way. Kind of just depends. We go back and forth. But they learn all the same things that the high schoolers learn. They learn all the different machines. We also do some outreach with kids clubs and camps. We do summer camps. We do winter camps. We build remote control airplanes. Here we've got kids building an electric car. We had kids that designed and built these little catapults, and then we brought in this big trebuchet at the end and threw water balloons. And the kids really like it. It gets the younger kids into the lab and gets them, hands-on, so they can really start developing those skills, so that when they get a little bit older and they, can really, they have something, they have the basic knowledge when they're really young, so that way they can grow. And there's also local groups that come in. Other schools will come by. Here's a Boy Scout group that used our techno to route out all of their Pinewood Derby cars. And as being part of a Fab Lab, we also offer open labs to the public. So the public can come in and use our lab. We have the classes and everything, so you can learn how to use the stuff. But you don't have to have taken a class to visit our lab. But if you want to, jump onto some of the more advanced machines, you have to have taken a class and kind of know what you're doing, so that way we don't have a bunch of untrained people, hurting themselves and stuff. Which is kind of the same way that this lab works. So open labs, we have a schedule online. Here's our website, actually, hobie.net/FabLab. And we'll put a schedule on. We have labs throughout the year, and you can come in and utilize our equipment for projects. And here's our contact info, and I have cards if you're interested. And that's the end of my presentation. Any questions?
My hope is that I'll have this presentation, Lori's presentation, all the materials. I'll be able to, if I can get those from you, and I'll trace that stuff up. Yep.
Well, thank you, Lori and Noah. I don't know about you, but